G'day you beautiful people, welcome back. Today we're finally going to be going over damage in Warframe. So we're going to be going over a lot of stuff here, so hang on to your boots. First off, we're going to need to just quickly go over what is damage, okay? And then we'll talk about enemies for a moment, and then we'll circle back to all the different damage types. So that's not a great example. Here, okay. So, in the bottom right hand corner, you can see the stat sheet for the Prisma Scanner. The majority of weapons in the game have what is known as the IPS stats. That's your impact, puncture, and slash. Okay, these are your standard damage types. There are certain weapons that do not have IPS. They will come with just a different type of elemental energy. Not sure if I can remember what one is off the top of my head. Something like the Ignis, for example. The Ignis just comes with heat as a standard. It does not have IPS, and you cannot, I believe, there's not much room on this bad boy, is there? Go for a mod that will up. Where would one of those be? I don't think I have any maxed out. So there's 5% puncture. So you cannot put puncture mods onto these. It will not give you puncture damage. However, the other way around, as you notice, this just has slash, puncture, and impact. The other way around does actually work. So you can get rid of that and chuck electricity on and add electricity damage. You'll see we have 69.3 damage on the side there. Okay, so they are your basic damage types in the game: IPS, impact, puncture, slash. Then you have your electricity, your cold, your toxin, and your heat, and combinations thereof. So we'll go over that in a moment. The first thing we really need to talk about is the differences in enemies. Okay, so with enemies, you have a bunch of different types of enemies. Let's get rid of that guy. What we will need is we will need Corpus enemies, like the Corpus Tech. We'll just grab one of him. I don't think he has a shield. We're just talking about normal enemies here, so we're not going to be going over any sort of bursts too early. So then you have something like a Detron Curuman, and then in Grenier, let's go for, let's just do Orokin. And go for a Corrupted Heavy Gunner and a Bombard. And let's make sure that we are invincible. We'll pause the AI, and they are 105. That is the max level that I can actually make them. So let's simulate those guys. I don't think there was an enemy out there. I just got here. So there shouldn't be anything out there. There might be a little bit of lag because I am also downloading Terra. Okay, so here we have 4 different types of enemies. Okay, you'll notice that there are, on their health bars, there are yellow health bars, there are red health bars, there are blue health bars. Okay, red pretty much just means health. Red is your health. Yellow is health with armor. Okay. And blue is shield. Okay, so these different types of armor here. So this guy here has alloy armor, I believe, or is it? No, I'm doing it wrong. It's the other way around. That is ferrite armor. Ferrite armor is commonly found among Grenier enemies. So you know, any sort of lower tier like butchers will have ferrite armor. Most enemies will have ferrite armor within the Grenier. Then you have the alloy armor, which is predominantly bosses. A lot of bosses have alloy armor. The bailiffs, the bombards, the elite lancers, the eviscerators, napalm, and nox from Grenier. Also, the bursars have alloy armor. And corrupted bombards, corrupted lancers, also the eidolons and sentinels, I think. So then you have obviously just normal health, and you have shields. Now there's two types of shields. There are standard shields and there are proto shields. I believe proto shields, as far as I know, are mainly bosses. Like the higher tier enemies have the proto shield, so we're not really going to focus on that too much today. But then that is your different type of what the different colors mean on your health bars. But there are also different types of flesh in the game, which would equate to what the red health bar is. So the red health bar is obviously just how much health they have, but you need to take into account what type of flesh they have, what type of armor they have, what type of shield they have when it comes down to what type of damage you want to be using. Okay, so if we go and have a look at impact, puncture, and slash to start off with. So we have a little overlay on the screen right now. This is impact damage, okay, across the 3 different factions. So you'll notice Infested doesn't have any numbers in there at all because they are not resistant to or weak to impact in any way, shape, or form. Whereas Corpus, normal Corpus flesh, so if we were to take the shield off of this guy, for example, he would take 25% less damage. So say if you were doing 1,000 damage per bullet, once you got that shield off, you would actually only be doing 750 damage to him per bullet. But whereas his shield or a proto shield would actually take 50% and 15% respectively more damage. So that 1,000 damage would actually equate to 1,500 over that shield. And then with the Grineer, Machinery takes 25% more damage and Clone Flesh takes 25% less damage. So Grineer have cloned flesh, so that's one thing to note. Alright, moving on, we have slash damage. Alright, so as you can see on the screen, Clone Flesh from Grineer takes 25% more damage from slash, but the armor takes 15% less for ferrite and 50% less for alloy. When it comes to Corpus, their flesh takes 25% more, but the robots actually take 25% less. And it is effective across the board against the Infested. It doesn't do any extra damage against Sinew, but they're not resistant against it either. Next up, we have Puncture, which is probably the most meh of all the IPS stats. So against ferrite and alloy armor, it's actually pretty good. It does 50% more damage and 15% more damage against alloy armor, 50% against ferrite, 15% against alloy armor. It does less damage against shields though. It does more damage against robotics, and in the Infested tree, it only does more damage against Sinew. Okay, so that's your standard damage types, right? So you have your different damage types, which include IPS, and it also includes, like we noted before, your electricity, your heat, your cold, and your toxin, and the combinations thereof, which are things like corrosive, magnetic, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but there is also a thing known as status types. Okay, so each different damage type in the game, whether it be IPS or it be elemental damage types, have status procs. Okay, so these status procs will create an effect. Okay, so to demonstrate this, I have, I don't even know why I kept that on there, to be honest. I have this build here, right, which we've got to 98.6% status chance. It's a very low damage across the board. I got rid of most of my high damage mods. It's just this stuff here to create what I was after. So let's just back out and back in just to see what we're dealing with. So right here, this is viral, so we actually want to get rid of Scorch. No, we don't. Actually, we want to get rid of Pistol Pestilence. We'll drop down to 93% and we'll have a look at blast damage to start off with, just because it's really simple to explain what a status type is. Okay, so we will go over the damage types in a moment, all the different elemental damage types and what their status procs are, but first off we'll start doing the IPS stuff. But just before we do that, I just want to show you exactly what a status is. Okay, so we can shoot this corrupted heavy gunner with heat, and you see that he kind of panics. That is the effect of heat. So when you see on their health bar that heat symbol pop up, they are being affected by a status proc. Okay, so if we go and we have a look at the Dex Furus, we should easily proc blast. Blast will knock them on their feet. We also procced puncture and slash, and we'll go over what they do in a moment. But just to sort of show you with a high status weapon what the difference is. Okay, so that is a status proc. You do not have to have high status chance to make use of the damage type though. Okay, so that's one thing that I think a lot of people get wrong, is they think that there's not much point speccing into, say, like on my Tigress, I have slash damage, toxin damage, radiation damage, puncture, and impact. A lot of people think, well, there's not much point having radiation damage if my gun has 0% status chance. That is not true. It will still do the damage type. All of that damage that's on the right hand side there, slash, toxin, radiation, puncture, and impact, that is all being used. But because we have a 63.2% status chance, 63% of the time we will proc one of the effects that correspond with those different damage types. So what we'll do is we'll have a look at some of the different status types in the game. So let's just quickly look at Ember for a moment. And yes, I know she looks disgusting. One thing I hate about Ember is you cannot really make her look fantastic all the time. So let's get her stuff up. Let's put her into her different form, and let's chuck Maim on. Okay, so this is going to apply slash procs. Okay, so they have been hit by slash, they sort of stagger around a little bit and panic, and then they continue to take a little bit of damage. So let's just blow that up, and let's hit it again, and just watch. When they get hit by it, they will stagger a bit, you'll see the slash proc on their health bar, and they will take some damage over time. That is how the actual status proc of slash works. Okay, so that's why things like Hunter's Munitions is so good, because when you get a crit you can apply slash damage, or slash effect. Okay, so the next thing that we want to look at is impact. Okay, so if we bring impact back up on the screen right now, so we've looked at what the different factions take in regards to damage. So what we need to do now is we need to find something that procs impact. Impact is pretty much just a stagger. It's like kind of like blast in a way. We may actually get it to proc on the Dex Furus if we get rid of the elemental damage type. So we're going to have a much lower status chance of 60%, but we're only going to be able to proc either slash, puncture, or impact. Okay, so let's see if we can get that to proc. So we'll put the Dex Furus on with proc puncture, and there you see the impact procced, and he staggered backwards. There we go, impact procs, and he staggers backwards. Puncture, slash, impact procs, and he staggers backwards. Okay, so impact's status effect is that it staggers targets. Now the really cool thing about this is that overkill, high amounts of impact damage, like say if you have an impact sniper that one-shot something, can send enemies into the stratosphere ragdolling, because it is the effect of the stagger is exacerbated by how much damage is being done. So the more damage you do, the more the impact will actually hit, and the more the effect will cause you to laugh. Okay, so the next thing we have is puncture. I'm not going to try and show you how this works because I'm just going to end up dying a bunch, but the easy way to explain puncture is that puncture, when it procs on an enemy, it causes them to do less damage. Okay, so if you've ever had a puncture proc applied to you by an enemy, it means that you're doing less damage. Okay, it's kind of it's the worst of the three, and possibly the worst of all the different damage types in the game. So the next thing that we're going to look at is we're going to look at the different elemental damages. Okay, so what we'll do first is we'll chuck Deep Freeze on, and we'll chuck Frostbite on, just because why not? So we have an 81% status chance, and we will probably proc Cold. Okay, so if we come over here, chuck that on, and it's probably not, actually I might have to go and make them move, because you can probably kind of tell that he's a little bit slower. So we've procced Cold there. Actually we will go and allow them to move. So we'll kill them and let them move just so that we can just show this a little bit better. This is going to be one of the two that we're probably going to have to let them move with. So let's go into settings. We'll kill them. We'll take pause off, and then we'll respawn them. Okay, so they're moving now, and they're not happy with each other at all. So let's proc cold on him. He's going to move slower. Proc cold on him. You see how slow he's actually moving, and then the cold goes off and he moves again. So we've got cold on him. He's moving really slowly and firing slowly, and then the cold comes off and he's moving fast again. Okay, so all it really does is the cold will slow down enemies, and yeah, that's pretty much it. But looking at the actual damage type itself, it does 25% more damage to ally armor. So as we mentioned, that is things like the bombard, which can be a bit of a pain in the bum. It's of Grineer. It only does more damage against alloy armor, so if you're speccing into cold and you're doing Grineer missions, it's really only effective against the bombards. It does more damage to standard corpus shields by 50%, so it's pretty effective against that. But there's better ways to deal with that, which we'll go over in a moment. It's less effective against most types of infested though. 25% against sinew, but negative 25 and negative 50 against two of the other different damage types. So let's, while we've still got that on, actually, let's get rid of the Corpus Tech and the Detron Crewman for a moment. Okay, because we want two guys that will not attack each other in a moment. So let's chuck that on there. And then let's go into, we already looked at heat. Okay, so I'll bring heat up on the screen again. So here we have heat damage, okay, 25% more against standard Grineer flesh, so all flesh types, it'll take 25% more damage. The effect of heat is much like slash. It procs, it staggers them, or doesn't stagger them, it makes them panic a little bit, and then they take damage over time. So it's pretty standard, not much point in showing that again. It does less damage against proto shields, it does more damage against infested, so it's a very good option against infested. But one that we need to go over is, let's go over the electric. Okay, now I don't actually have any of the electric twin stat mods, so we're going to have to just hope that this is good enough to proc it. Now what happens with, oh, hello, with electric is it kind of stuns them for a moment. So they're just, he's moving, and he just gets shocked, okay? So that is the status effect of electricity. The damage will be on the screen right now, so it does less damage against alloy armor. So going against the heavy gunner, I will do standard damage of 4s and 5s, and then if we go to this guy over here, we're still doing 4s and 5s, but you can see when the electricity damage is hitting, it's actually only doing the 4 on crits. It's doing less, see buddy, it's doing less damage against his armor because his armor is resistant to it. Okay, now, so that's electricity, it's pretty standard. Then we have one more, which is Toxin. So let's get Toxin up on here. We'll chuck Pathogen rounds on just because, and we want Pistol Pestilence. Alright, so we've got 81% status chance, and we have 67% Toxin damage in there. Okay, so let's go and look at the, oh, hey, did you respawn? Okay, so Corrupted Bombard, proc Toxin damage. You'll see that he'll have a little sort of hue going on around him, and he has the proc on him. We're using Tigress, he's got radiation proc. That was a radiation proc we were looking at. We'll get into that in a minute. So Toxin, proc Toxin, and if you look at his health bar, you can kind of see the little red slash at the end of the health bar. That is him taking damage over time from Toxin. Right there. Okay, so it's pretty much just another damage over time effect, and it's pretty standard. Looking at the Toxin damage chart, you'll see that it does 25% bonus damage to ferrite armor. It does 25% less against machinery and grineer. It does 50% more damage against corpus flesh. It says not applicable on the shield because what it does is it affects health. Once it procs, or even beforehand, it just instantly affects health. It goes through the shield itself, so they can still have a full shield and the toxin will still actually be damaging their health bar, so therefore it's not applicable as to what, it doesn't matter what damage it does to a shield, because if they have a full shield and a full health bar, the toxin is going to be affecting their health bar while they still have a full shield, so it doesn't matter. But then it does less damage against infested, fossilized health, and corpus robotics. So that is toxin, and that is the 4 standard types. Okay, so I'm going to make radiation on the Dex Furus, which is... Christ, I forget what radiation was for a moment there. It is heat and electric. Okay, so, oh my god, I'm having moments. Alright, let's get rid of this. So what we want is, we want Scorch. And we want some electric damage from Convulsion. We have 81% status chance. That is good enough. Okay. So we want these guys to be close to each other. And they, as you can see, have wandered off. So let's kill them. And respawn them. Okay. So we've got 2 enemies in. Right, radiation on him, radiation on him. You can see they're now attacking each other. Radiation has a status effect that causes enemies to kind of go a little bit loopy and attack each other for a while. Okay, so those two just started attacking each other, and then the Bombard actually applied blast damage to the heavy gunner. So that is your radiation damage in a nutshell. Well, that's your radiation proc in a nutshell. As far as damage goes, it does 75% more. 75% more damage against alloy armor. It does 25% less against shield, but it does 25% more against corpus robotics. It does more against infested sinew, but it does less against standard infested flesh and fossilized infested flesh. It is actually one of my favorites when it comes to damage types, especially on higher tier content, because if my Tigress does not, say if I'm attacking a level 100 heavy gunner, if I'm at a distance and I don't kill it with my Tigress but I proc radiation damage, then it's happy days, because that heavy gunner is now going to attack his friends. So that is radiation damage in a nutshell. Alright, so keeping with the convulsion, let's chuck on Frostbite, and that's going to give us magnetic. Okay, actually, while we still have these guys out, let's chuck on Pistol Pestilence. Okay, that's going to give us corrosive damage. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to kill both of those guys, pause the AI, and we're going to spawn them back in again. We're going to bring up corrosive on the screen right now, so you'll see it's 75% more effective against ferrite armor, so it'll do more damage against ferrite armor, less damage against shields, and more damage against fossilized infested health bars. Okay, so we have the Dex Furus. So on this guy, we've got a slash corrosive proc on there right now, working its magic. So we're doing 8s with the puncture. Why are we still staggering him? Oh my god. Because the impact procs. So we're doing like 5s and 4s and 22s. And then on this guy over here, we're doing much higher numbers. Well, not much higher, but percentage wise, it's actually doing more damage against the ferrite armor, because the alloy armor is not resistant, but it doesn't take damage from it. Why is there still a Bombard right there? Oh my god. Okay, so but the good thing about corrosive damage is, as you can see, he's still affected by it, is it strips armor. Okay, so over a certain course of time, this armor will actually get stripped off. So we could sit here and just shoot him a bunch and get those procs onto his armor, and eventually, like right there, take off all of his armor. He now will take more damage. As you can see, the numbers are much higher because he has no armor. So this guy here, he's taking sort of 29s and 42s, and then eventually he has no armor and he's taking 78s and 39s. He's taking more damage because corrosive strips armor. But on top of that, it is also still very good because it does more damage against ferrite armor, which, as we talked about, is what most Grineer units actually have. So if you have corrosive damage on your weapon, if you look at your stat sheet, for example, so this is saying that we do 67 damage. If that's at 100, that would be good. Okay, we got 100 bonus damage towards enemies, but you're actually doing 75% more. So that 100 would be 175 damage on your weapon. So that's why it's important to make sure you're using the right combinations at the right time. So say if you're doing if you're only doing high-end Grineer missions, say for example you're doing sorties, and it's all Grineer, there is no point going in with something like magnetic against the Grineer when corrosive is so good against ferrite armor, because ferrite armor makes up most of the armor that you're going to come across. As we said, it's only going to be bombards and napalms that you're going to have to worry about. And then you could also just have corrosive and cold on your weapon, then you would get more damage against the alloy armor of the bombards with your cold damage. I really want to get Equinox off my screen because I think she looks crap. So let's just chuck that bad boy on. Alright, so we've covered corrosive and we have covered radiation. One of the next things, well, actually we sort of covered blast as well, so I won't really go over blast again. We've already covered blast. Okay, so the next thing that I actually want to cover while we've still got the Grineer out is viral. Okay, so if we grab this bad boy and we go, oh my god. Sorry, we wanted Pistol Pestilence on there. Where is she? Pistol Pestilence, and am I correct? Yes, I am correct. So it's cold and toxin. Okay, so I changed my mind. We're actually going to get rid of these guys because we'll go over magnetic and we'll go over viral in one go. So let's go for, let's just go same again. We'll go Corpus Tech and a crewman. Okay, we'll go into settings. We'll pause the II, kill the guys that are out there already. And let's go and simulate. Okay, now this is a bit of a weird one, okay? What it does is it procs, using viral damage, it procs the viral status effect, which is called virus. Okay, and what it does is it reduces a target's current and maximum health to 50% of that health for 6 seconds. So what it means by current and maximum is obviously if you haven't touched them, their maximum health is what they currently have. But if you've taken half their health off, their current health is half of what their maximum is. Okay, so if we proc viral, you'll see that the shield bar actually got bigger and the health bar got smaller. Now where the viral runs off, it goes back to normal. Okay, so this guy has a lot more health. It'll be easier to notice. So we've procced viral, and his health bar shrunk. It's actually not easier to notice. It's easier to notice on there. What it's doing is you're not taking that 50% health away from him forever. It's just for that moment, it is reducing what his maximum and his current health is. So if he has a maximum of 1,000 health, you have not touched him at all. On your first bullet, you proc viral. He will only have 500 health, but once the viral proc runs out, he will get his health back that he had. So what it generally does is while it's proc, it just makes things easier to kill because they have less health to deal with. Okay? Hope that makes sense. If you don't completely understand it, let me know in the comment section down below. So he's still technically has the same amount of health. Once the viral proc runs out, you haven't just deleted that health. You've just, for the time frame that the viral proc takes effect, reduce the amount of health you have to take off him. Okay, so it's actually kind of handy. So the next thing we're going to look at is the magnetic damage type. Before we do, I should quickly bring up the viral damage on the screen and show you that it does 75% more damage against the Grineer flesh, 25% less against Grineer machinery. It does 50% more against Corpus flesh. It does 50% less against standard infested flesh. So it's pretty decent. Viral is not a bad option. The next thing that we're going to look at though is magnetic. Okay, so if we want to make magnetic, we're going to have to get rid of Pistol Pestilence. We're going to have to chuck Convulsion on. So there we have magnetic damage. Alright, now standard magnetic damage is across the board meh against Grineer. It does 50% less against Bombards and Napalm units, the alloy armor wearing guys, but it just does standard damage against everyone else. It does normal damage against Corpus Robotics and Flesh. It does normal damage against Infested, but where it shines is that it does more damage against shields. Okay, and its status effect is called Disrupt, which reduces the target's current shields and maximum shield capacity by 75% for 4 seconds. So it's the same thing as the toxin damage, but for shields. So if we can proc it here, see how his health bar grew, and his shield bar looks smaller. What you need to understand that's happening, because it can be a little bit confusing, that you're not increasing his health there. So we'll come around here just so we don't knock him off the map. We're not increasing his health bar. It's just that the game is trying to balance. So you can see he has like a little, maybe 10% of his entire health bar is gone. Okay, so that health that you can see there and that shield makes up 90% of his maximum health and shield. Okay, that's his effective health points. Okay, we'll just call it that. So what it's doing is it's reducing the capacity of his shield by 75%. So the game is just trying to put a visual, trying to visualize what each thing is making up in regards to that. If we can get it proc again, to that 90%. So because that is the amount of that is still the same amount of health is what I'm trying to say. It's not, his health is not growing. It's just that the health is making up a higher percentage of what his total health pool and shield pool is. So it's just raising. It's not really the health that's growing, it's the shield that's being reduced is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so you won't notice it as much on the Corpus tech if it ever procs. Yeah, you can kind of notice it. But what it generally does is it reduces their shields by 75%. So magnetic damage is a pretty standard thing that people use against Corpus, just to sort of eat through those shields super fast. It can be very good on sortie missions against the Corpus where they have the modifier for increased shield capacity. It can be actually very good. So, what have we not done yet? We have not done gas. Okay, so we've done blast, cold, corrosive, electric, fire, impact, magnetic, puncture, radiation, slash, toxin, viral. Yes, so we're up to the last one, which is not my favorite at all, which is gas. Okay, so as far as gas damage goes, when the proc hits, what it does in general is it applies a gas cloud to the enemy, which infects surrounding enemies with toxin damage. Okay, it's with a toxin proc. Okay, so effectively by shooting one enemy, you can infect all surrounding enemies with toxin at the same time. It's kind of mediocre. It's kind of lackluster. Not many people really use it. I don't feel like it's a very popular damage type in the game. It's not. It's not very effective against many things. And like I said, the proc itself is not very effective. So the more popular types are, I suppose, for the standard types, Cold is pretty popular because if you're doing high-end Grineer activities, the cold damage will do more damage against bombards, but then again, bombards make up a very small amount of the Grineer population, so maybe it's not so good. But as far as going against Grineer, generally corrosive and fire is an extremely good option because you can strip that armor, do more damage to the armor, and apply a damage over time with fire if you proc it. As far as Corpus goes, magnetic is generally a pretty standard damage type. I personally just go for radiation, but against the Corpus, magnetic will do you well, toxin damage will do you well, slash procs will do you well, things like that. And then when it comes to the infested, generally fire is a pretty decent option. Fire and toxin, I think, are probably among the better options for taking out the infested. But that's, in a nutshell, guys, that is how damage sort of works. So we've gone over IPS, what IPS is, what the different types of armor and health and shields are, your different elemental damage types, what they do well against, what they do bad against, what the different status procs are. So there's not really much else to cover with damage. I could go more in depth about crit, but I'm not going to do that. So if there is anything that you didn't understand in the video, hopefully you understood that. I'm not the greatest at explaining things, but I feel like I've, in a roundabout way, done an okay job. So if you did enjoy the video and it was helpful, smash the like button. If you have found something too hard to grasp, or there is something that I didn't cover that you want to know the answer to, leave me a question in the down there. And if you're not already, subscribe to my channel for more Warframe content. We'll be getting more into it now that I've got this out of the way. We might go through and do some guides on the bosses in the game, because although a lot of people have no issue with the bosses, for newer players it can be a little bit of an issue trying to figure out how to actually kill each boss. So we might go through and do a guide on each of those bosses real quick. And apart from that, guys, thank you so much for watching. I love your face, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.